In this video, I want to talk about remote viewing and remote projection. It comes down to the same thing, but it can be used in different ways, of which those two are the most common. As we all know, the human being has five physical senses, but those five physical senses have a limited scope. You can't see beyond your sight. Okay? You can use a telescope to look further, or you can use other ways to get a better view, like you can use cameras in which you can observe things from a distance. Those enablements with technology are necessary because your view is limited. What some warlocks do, wizards often do this, but what warlocks often do, it is also done by some witches, is that they get assistance from two evil spirits to do the following. One evil spirit enters into their body or stays close to their body, and the other evil spirit goes out. Now, evil spirits, they can transfer um, data to one another without communicating with their mouth. We need to actually speak, or we need to draw, or we need to use visuals to show what we have in our mind. Evil spirits can use telepathy to transfer knowledge very quickly. The same way as one device with Wi-Fi transfers data to another device with Wi-Fi. Now, so it goes like this. The warlock has that entity in him or besides him that transfers to the warlock's brain what that entity receives from that second entity that's out there. So let's say that you have a boss who's a warlock, and let's say there's this employee who called in sick, but the boss doesn't buy it. So what does the boss do? The boss goes to his ritual room where nobody else is allowed to enter. He lights his candles, he calls upon the entities. One entity enters him and the other goes out looking for the employee. The entity arrives at the house of the employee, and the entity is just floating around. But the entity is transmitting everything he sees and hears towards the other entity that's with the warlock. And that entity with the warlock transfers everything to the warlock's brain. So the warlock will be seeing and hearing exactly what that second entity in the field is experiencing. That's remote viewing. So let's say now that that entity sees that employee um, playing video games at home. Now the boss then sees it because he sees it live. It's a paranormal live stream. Okay, live he sees what the employee is doing with the aid of those two demons. So then the next day the employee comes and he hears he's fired, and the boss tells them that you're not allowed to play video games when you're supposed to work. The employee is thinking, how did the boss know I was playing video games at home? Actually, the boss couldn't have known it. The boss used paranormal assistance to find out about it. And there are quite some warlocks using this ability. They don't have to actually spy on you through social media or by asking people about you, and they don't even have to actually follow you. Because to actually follow you in real life, that would be risky, and they would be putting themselves in physical danger. They could be arrested, or they could be stopped by other people, or you may notice them. They instead use remote viewing to find out things about you. And there are some witches using it also, but it's mainly done by warlocks. They've been doing this for centuries. When camera technology was invented, they could now use camera. But camera technology is limited because you're dependent on the camera angle and you're dependent on the devices to save the recordings, while remote viewing is live. And there are times, for example, you have some police officers that want to solve a case, but they can't figure out who's the killer. Then they go to a fortune teller, and the fortune teller uses this method not to view something live is going on, but to view something that happened in the past. I'm not going in that now, but evil spirits, to some extent, they can see into the past, what happened in a place before they arrived. And there are quite some cases that are secretly solved with the use of fortune tellers. But people just don't talk about it. What about remote projection? When remote viewing is going on, the second entity that's in the field often takes the form of the one that does the remote viewing. Or it takes the form of just any common individual. The entity does this to distract the environment. Now, people don't see the entity anyway because the entity is not visible to their human eye. But just in case there is a uh, uh, there's noise in the dimension which makes them temporarily visible, then people would see a human being standing there or an animal. So it's a projection that the entity projects into the environment, just like a hologram. Have you ever had this happening to you? That you're sitting somewhere, maybe in a park, or maybe you're in the bus or whatever, and suddenly you feel like someone is watching you right away. And you look around you and there's nobody looking at you. And you think, what is this? Now, probably, I'm not saying this was the case, but probably when this was going on, you were being remotely viewed. You had a warlock, or maybe even a witch somewhere, viewing you from a distance. What you sensed was the entity looking at you. And sometimes you may be walking down the streets and you feel like someone's watching you and you look around and this if you see someone moving away from you. Like you think if someone's stalking me, but here's the thing. No human being was actually there following you. It was an entity that used a projection of a human body. So that just in case you looked around, you wouldn't see the entity as the entity really is because that would expose the whole thing. You would see a human being, and often the entity would take the appearance of the one doing the viewing, or it would take the appearance of someone you know closely. So remote viewing and remote projection, those two are often used by pagans who want to check who they're involved with. Because this is one thing you need to understand. Believers are constructed. Believers are instructed to walk by faith. That implies making use of all the power that God has in store for us. But a lot of believers just don't do this. Pagans, at the other hand, when they know of a certain or some ability they can use from the paranormal, they investigate that ability, they check the side effects, how it works, how they should use it, how they shouldn't use it, and they listen to more experienced pagans who are experienced in using that ability. So they pay attention to one another and they learn from one another and they make use of what's available to them. They do. Believers often just get along too easily with what's going on around them. While pagans, they make sure they take advantage of what's around them. That's what they do. So what to do about remote viewing or remote projection? First of all, those are things that just happen in this world, okay? You can't prevent people from wanting to remotely view you. And by the remote viewing, it's not something everyone can do. Only those that are deeply involved in the demonic can do that. And it's not really them doing it, it's the demons assisting them. Because they don't have that ability from themselves. And when they practice remote viewing, it must serve Satan's agenda one way or the other. So, what do you do against remote viewing? First of all, you have your comfort from the Holy Spirit. So you can pray invisibility on your part. What happens then is that the Holy Spirit causes the demons to see some blur when they see you, which means that those who want to remotely view you can't really see you. They may see someone there, but they don't actually see you. You can also pray invisibility towards those around you with bad intent, which means that you will be there physically, but a lot of folks just don't see you there. So that people who may have bad intentions don't even notice you. One of the prophets, I believe it was the prophet Elisha, did this. There was a Syrian camp with Syrian soldiers, and he pretended to be on their side to point them to where the Israelites were. And the prophet Elisha placed a let me say a partial blindness on those soldiers that he couldn't see it was Elisha. He led them all the way to Samaria into the capital of the Israelites. And those soldiers just didn't realize that they were walking into the capital of their enemy. They just walked into a trap right away while following someone that wanted to trap them. And it's only after they've been trapped in the capital of the Israelites that the blindness was removed from them and they realized, oh dear, we are in the capital of the Israelites, the people we are at war with. How could we not have noticed that we were being trapped by the Israelites? But those men were later released. This was the prophet Elisha using one of the powers that were available unto him. Now, I'm not making this video to promote pagans. I'm making this video to alert you that pagans are quite serious in using the paranormal enablement that's available unto them. They study it well and they practice it. They're dedicated. Believers should be far more dedicated with walking by faith. We should. So, against remote viewing, pray partial blindness so that the wrong people will not be able to see you. Well, that's it for now. Keep agreeing with Christ and be at peace.